What are the top 7 T visa secrets that other lawyers are not telling you about? You are about to watch some of the most important T visa information I've ever said on this channel. To make this video easier to use, I have split it up into sections. And as a bonus, I'm going to share the #1 reason why I believe that the T visa is a miracle visa. So be sure to watch until the end. So let's talk about scenarios under which your work situation may end up helping you qualify to get legal status in the US without having to leave. And by legal status, we're talking about protection against deportation, a work authorization, and a pathway to citizenship here in the US, okay? If you have ever been in a situation where you have worked for someone here in the US and you are undocumented and you have received unfair treatment at work, not been paid for all the hours that you worked, not allowed to take a break, not allowed to leave the job premises, then these are things that you need to watch out for, and you need to understand that you may have the right to protect yourself in immigration and apply for something called a T visa. So if you have ever worked for an employer who has essentially exploited you in a really, really bad way, if your boss has been racist, makes remarks to you about immigration coming to get you, or they refuse to pay you for all of the hours that you work, if they scream at you, if they curse at you, if they generally make you afraid of what they might do, and even in some very extreme situations, your boss may have actually laid their hands on you if you've been sexually assaulted at work and your immigration status gets brought up to keep you quiet, to keep you accepting of these circumstances at work, then these are usually the symptoms of a problem that is called trafficking in immigration law. And if you have been trafficked for the purpose of getting work out of you, forcing you to work, forcing you to provide labor, then this is usually a pathway to citizenship, okay? And I would love for everybody who's in the US, any immigrants, to know about this, because it is just a sort of miracle case, especially if you do not have a legal entry. If you enter the US illegally, then this may be an option for you that does not require you to leave. If you have the permanent bar, you can also get that fixed through this case by asking for a waiver of it. And again, best of all, it does not require you to leave. So what options do you have, and what are the signs that you might need to apply for something called a T visa, especially if you have been dealing with an employer or a boss who is humiliating you, who is degrading you, and who is making your life miserable in your job. This is something that has happened to so many people. And when you are undocumented, when you don't have a work permit, when you are working underneath the table and getting paid in cash, you may believe that you have no rights at all. But believe it or not, you may actually have rights to not just get legal status, but you may even have rights in your state to get unpaid wages and back payment for not getting proper payments. Today, let's talk about what are your immigration options if you have been subjected to humiliating and really, really bad treatment at work, and what are some of the signs that you should be looking out for if you have been having a difficult time at work and you are undocumented. So #1, something that is not normal is for your employer to be humiliating you in front of others, or even when you're by yourself. So with this humiliation, if it includes such things as them screaming in your face, yelling at you, calling you names, calling you slurs, making fun of your ethnicity or your country, and saying this either in front of customers or in front of your other colleagues, or even when you are alone with them, this can be one red flag and one warning sign that you should look out for. #2, if your employer constantly or even just occasionally brings up your immigration status and points out to you that you don't have papers. Sometimes they might point out to you that you have no papers when they make comments or jokes that you don't really know the rules, you don't really know the law, therefore you probably don't know any better and you should listen to them. Or they might make comments that because you don't have your papers, you should be careful. Or lastly, if your employer even outright says that you might get in trouble with police or with immigration because of not having a status, and therefore you need to do what they say, this is warning sign #2. #3, If your employer constantly tells you that you have to stay late, that you have to work extra hours, that you can't take a break, that whenever they see you sitting around, even resting for 5 minutes, they scream at you, they yell at you, and they make you do work, they make you get up and go around. This is warning sign number 3. And warning sign number 4 that you should be on the lookout if your employer is doing this to you is if your employer is always telling you that if you don't do what they say, then you may not get a job outside, and no one would hire you except them because they're the only people that hires people without papers. Or they might even say that they know everyone in town, they know all these other businesses, and if you leave the job or if you get them upset, then you may have trouble getting a job elsewhere. These are some of the warning signs that are actually common things that happen to immigrants, and if it's happening to you or if it has happened to you in the past, then you may be eligible for something called a T visa. With the T visa, it puts you on a pathway to a green card. It puts you on a pathway to protection inside the United States. It puts you on the pathway to a work permit as well. If you have ever worked for a toxic boss, if you have ever been in a very toxic environment and you are undocumented, can you still get a visa through this? Can you still get immigration protection? Even if that toxic boss has died or that business no longer exists, can you still apply for something called a T visa? And what are the actual requirements to getting your T visa approved? This is one of my most favorite topics that I think that every immigrant should know about, because when you are undocumented, it is very typical for us to take jobs that are underneath the table, for us to accept the jobs that other people do not want to do. And as a result, you may end up in a work situation that is actually very, very bad, right? If you have worked for a job that was like this, can you still get legal status from this situation, even if that boss is no longer alive or the business is no longer operating? And the answer is yes, it may still be possible, because it is not in the requirement that your boss still be alive or that the business still be working right now. So even if this happened years ago, we just got a T visa approved for somebody who is in Georgia and who was working at a restaurant that has been closed for at least 10 years. So this works. So what are the actual requirements? Number 1, you need to be here inside the US. If you're not in the US anymore, if you left the US since this happened and we came back, then you may no longer qualify, right? So this trafficking incident needs to have happened here in the US after you arrive. And you need to be here on account of that incident. So even if it happened 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, as long as you were still here because of some problem that created in your life, then we may be able to make a good argument about why you still qualified. Number 2, that boss that you work for needs to have basically made you feel threatened, made you feel scared into doing this work, right? And we're not talking about just the fear of losing your job, but sometimes really your boss might be saying things to you like, oh, you'll never find a job elsewhere, I'm going to ruin your name, or they actually threaten to hurt you, right? If you're sitting there at the workplace, working faster, not taking a break, not getting up because you're afraid your boss is going to scream at you, going to yell at you, and even if they have threatened to deport you or get you in trouble with the IRS or the police or anything else, then this may definitely constitute a trafficking situation. And next, we do need to make a report to law enforcement regarding the situation, but it's not what you might think. We usually try to let the Department of Labor know or the FBI. You don't actually have to file a police report. So even if your boss is no longer alive, this may still work for you. Is that housework that you're doing really just a normal housework, or is it really a situation for a T visa? If you do not know what the T visa is, it is a type of case that every immigrant needs to know about, because it could very well apply in your situation, and it can be a way to get legal status. It can be a way to get a work permit. It can be a way to become a resident and a citizen of the US. And if you have been in a relationship with somebody, even if they're not a US citizen or if they are a US citizen, if you have been in a relationship with somebody where you just feel like you are constantly working for them, you are constantly doing things, and you feel like there's no relief, there's no way that you can get out of it, you need to keep listening, because what I'm about to tell you about may very well help you and may apply in your case. So let's talk about, first of all, what is a T visa, and then I'll tell you about whether or not possibly the housework that you are doing, the domestic work that you are doing, whether that can qualify as a T visa. So first of all, the T visa is a type of immigration case where basically T stands for trafficking, but in the immigration world, trafficking is not what you think about like when it comes to like drug trafficking or things like that. Trafficking in the immigration context is any time you have a situation where you are doing work or providing labor or services to somebody, but you're not really doing it out of your own free will. You can be doing work for somebody who pays you money, or you could be doing work for somebody who you're married to or living within a house, okay? If you are doing work for someone, whoever that person is, if you are doing work for somebody because you are afraid of what will happen to you if you don't do it, because that person threatens you, threatens to hurt you, threatens to get you deported, threatens to get you arrested, threatens your good name. If you end up doing work out of a fear of your own safety or of your own freedom, then this may end up being a situation that is really a T visa. And so how can your housework end up becoming a T visa situation? Well, many times if you are in a relationship where your spouse or partner is threatening you, if they actually put their hands on you, if they hit you, if they hurt you when you don't do what they say, if they expect you to get up as early in the morning as you can to make them breakfast, or they'll wake you up out of bed whenever they come home at night so that you can cook them their food. If they want things cleaned a certain way in the house, and if you don't do these things, if they resort to violence, or if they tell you that you can't leave the house, if they tell you that you have to go outside and work and then give them all their money, or else they're going to take away your children. These are some of the situations where your domestic life, where your personal life can actually be a T visa situation. And it's very important for you to know, because not everyone is married to a U.S. citizen. Not everybody has a way to do VAWA or to do a green card through marriage. And if you're not married to a U.S. citizen, and this is your situation where you feel like you are your partner's servant, then this is something that you need to look into. And some lawyers will tell you that this does not constitute trafficking, but think about it this way. Do you feel like you are free to leave? Do you feel like you are free to not do what they say? If not, then that may very well mean that you may have a T visa situation. And please give us a call, 212-248-7907. It is definitely something that every person needs to be aware about. And this can help you whether you are a man or a woman, whether you're married or whether you're just living with a boyfriend or girlfriend. This may very well constitute a T visa situation, okay? Is it possible for you to apply for and be approved for a T visa without any proof of what has happened to you? And this is an important question that I want to answer for you today. Now, this is a comment that we got from a caller a few days ago who was used a coyote to use it to enter the United States. However, in the process of coming into the US, the coyotes forced him to do things. The coyotes forced him to cook and clean inside of one of the houses and serve everybody else, and also do some other things that were unmentionable. And he was worried about the fact that he had not gone to the police and that he did not have any proof of what he suffered at the hands of the coyotes. And this is what I will say to you. If you have used the help of anyone to come into the US and they have forced you to do things in the process of coming into the US, then it might be possible that you are eligible for something called a T visa, which can help you get a green card in the future, and you don't have to leave the US in order to get approved. However, many people don't apply out of fear of the fact that they don't have any proof, right? So how much proof do you actually need to get approved for this type of case? And the answer to this is that you actually don't need as much proof as you think you do, because your case really depends on your affidavit, and your affidavit should contain the right type of details to help show to immigration why you were trafficked in the US. So if you have been worried about applying for this because you don't have any proof, you don't have to worry about that. So how do you apply for a T visa, and what are the benefits? Well, the number one benefit to a T visa is that it puts you on a pathway to citizenship. It puts you on a pathway to getting a green card. It puts you on a pathway to then getting citizenship after that. And you can get many, many immigration violations fixed and waived through the T visa. So even if you have the permanent bar, even if you have an illegal entry, even if you have a false claim to US citizenship, the T visa is a pathway to a green card for you, okay? So how long does a T visa take, and what is the process? Well, first of all, I'm really pleased to say that the T visa right now has one of the quicker processing times by immigration. It takes about 1.5 to 2 years to get your case processed. And also, once you get your T visa approved, you immediately get a work permit, and you also are put onto the 3-year waiting list. You have to wait 3 years before you file for your residency. And many times you can ask for that time period to be shortened by asking for a special permission from the Attorney General's office, okay? There is also going to be a new rule that goes into effect that gives people a work permit during the time that your T visa is processing if they give you a bona fide determination. So it's an even better result for people when they are filing for a T visa, because having a work permit immediately as soon as you can is a life-changing benefit, okay? I've been getting lots of comments that you can't apply for a T visa without a police report, which is not actually correct, because you don't need a police report to apply for a T visa. However, we ourselves have to make a report to a law enforcement agency. This could be the FBI, this could be the Department of Labor. Now, the Department of Labor in your state is a great advocacy tool for you, because especially if you worked for somebody who didn't pay you properly or they didn't pay you overtime, then when you make a report to the Department of Labor, sometimes they can even help you get back the money that you're owed from the employer. So this counts as law enforcement reporting for the purpose of a T visa. So it's not necessarily something that's scary. You don't need to make an actual police report. You just need to submit in writing that proof that you have told some sort of law enforcement agency with the power to process a T visa that you suffered this. And you don't have to wait for the law enforcement agency to say that they believe you or that they also agree that you suffered trafficking. All we have to show for your immigration case is that we fulfilled our obligation to report what happened to you to a law enforcement agency. So even if you left your abusive job many, many years ago, that doesn't matter. And even if you don't have a police report or you don't have a proof of what you went through, that is also okay. There are so many ways to prove these cases, but the bottom line is that your affidavit is the most important thing. As always, call us for an appointment to talk to us about what has happened to you so we can ask you some more questions and make sure that this is the right sort of case for you. So call us at 212-248-7907. What does the T visa pardon? Oh my God, what does it not pardon? You can get a T visa even if you have an illegal entry, even if you have a prior deportation, even if you have the permanent bar, even if you have certain arrest convictions, even if you have a false claim to citizenship, even if you have a fraud in your past, even if you have fraud due to a fake marriage. These are the things that a T visa can forgive and pardon, plus more, which is why to me, I think that the T visa is like a miracle visa. I really, really love it. I really, really love what it can do for clients' lives. And at the end of the day, these immigration cases are about you and about how your life will be improved, about you getting status, about you getting a work permit, about you getting a social security number, about you being able to travel, about you finally finding that security and that stability in your life that you deserve because of all the things that you've done to contribute to this society, okay? And if you would like to learn more about T visas and what it requires in order to get approved, please click on this link and learn more about your options. I'm Moumita Rahman. I'll see you next time.